Here's something I'll admit right off the bat. I used to dread composting kitchen waste. Every week I'd drag buckets of scraps out to the pile, mix them, turn them, monitor moisture, and still end up with half-rotted banana peels and a smell I couldn't defend. But then I learned a lazy gardener's trick, so simple it felt like cheating, and it completely changed my soil game. No turning, no layering gymnastics, no fancy bin. Just a single pile that transformed kitchen scraps into deep, earthy humus faster than any hot compost system I'd tried before. So today, we're diving deep into the lazy pile trick, how it works, why it works, and how you can use it to turn waste into soil gold with almost zero effort. The secret is that decomposition wants to happen. You just need to set the stage. Composting isn't about making things rot. It's about creating the right conditions for what nature already does. When you toss kitchen waste in the trash, you're cutting it off from oxygen and biology. But in the garden, given air, moisture, and a bit of structure, decomposition takes off on its own. The lazy pile method relies on this principle: minimal interference, maximum microbial efficiency. Instead of over-engineering the process, you create a single, stable environment where waste breaks down naturally, fast and clean. The trick is to focus less on management and more on balance. You're not trying to control the pile, you're setting it up so that it runs itself. That means choosing the right spot, getting the right mix of materials, and letting biology do the heavy lifting. Once you understand the ratios and structure, the results will surprise you. Finished humus in a fraction of the time without the labor of turning or constant maintenance. Traditional compost piles rely on turning to introduce oxygen and speed up bacterial breakdown, but every time you turn, you disrupt the microbial colonies that are just getting started. The lazy pile works differently. By layering materials and maintaining moisture, you create an environment where aerobic and anaerobic pockets coexist. The outer zones stay oxygen-rich, while the inner zones heat up naturally. This dual environment allows both bacteria and fungi to work simultaneously, digesting materials from different angles. Kitchen waste is typically nitrogen-heavy, which can make it slimy if not balanced. The lazy pile corrects that by layering carbon materials, dry leaves, shredded cardboard, straw, or even old mulch every time you add new scraps. These layers act like filters, absorbing moisture, neutralizing odor, and keeping airflow consistent. Because you're not turning the pile, microbes build stable networks, accelerating the breakdown from the inside out. Within just 4 to 6 weeks, you'll notice the center of the pile sinking and darkening. That's the sign of active decomposition. Left for another few weeks, the bottom layers start forming humus, dark, crumbly, and rich in fungal life. Unlike hot composting, this process doesn't rely on massive heat to sanitize waste. It relies on slow, consistent biological digestion. And because it's undisturbed, the humus it creates is more stable and nutrient-dense. Start by picking a shaded or semi-shaded area with good drainage, somewhere you can access easily from your kitchen. This isn't about building a fancy bin. Even a simple corner bordered by sticks, pallets, or old bricks will do. The base is crucial, so lay down about 6 inches of coarse material, sticks, twigs, or straw. This keeps the bottom aerated and prevents soggy buildup. Now, every time you add kitchen waste, things like fruit peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, or vegetable scraps, cover it immediately with roughly twice the volume of dry carbon material. The ideal ratio is around 1 part green to 2 parts brown. For instance, if you dump 1 bucket of kitchen waste, top it with 2 buckets of shredded leaves or cardboard. This ratio keeps the nitrogen in check and prevents the pile from going anaerobic. Keep the moisture balanced. You want it as damp as a wrung-out sponge, never dripping wet. If it dries out, decomposition stalls. If it's soaked, it'll smell. During dry spells, just sprinkle it with a watering can once or twice a week. In rainy conditions, cover the pile loosely with a tarp or old compost sack to keep it from getting waterlogged. That's it. No turning, no forking, just feed it regularly, layer it properly, and let time do the work. After about 2 months, lift the top unfinished material aside and you'll find a layer of rich humus underneath, dark, soft, and full of life. That's your finished compost. You can sift it or apply it directly to garden beds, fruit trees, or seedling mixes. Then just rebuild the pile with the unfinished material on top and start again. It's a continuous loop that feeds itself. The humus from a lazy pile has a higher microbial diversity than hot compost because it decomposes at moderate temperatures, preserving beneficial organisms. It also tends to have a better carbon structure, which means it holds on to nutrients longer and improves soil aeration when mixed in. In my own garden, after switching to this method, I noticed earthworm populations skyrocketing around the pile and soil moisture improving significantly. That's because the humus acts like a sponge. It retains water and slowly releases it to plant roots. What's even better is the minimal nutrient loss. Hot composting burns off a lot of nitrogen and carbon as gas. In contrast, the lazy pile keeps the decomposition cool and steady, locking nutrients into organic compounds instead of releasing them. The result is humus that smells like forest soil and behaves like a natural slow-release fertilizer. It doesn't just feed plants, it feeds the soil ecosystem itself. If you're gardening in cold climates, the lazy pile still works. It just takes longer. To speed it up, use more nitrogen materials like fresh grass or manure early in the build to jumpstart microbial activity. In warm, dry areas, focus on moisture retention. Cover the pile more often and use finer carbon materials like shredded cardboard to trap humidity. For urban gardeners with limited space, this same principle can be applied in a large bucket, tote bin, or corner barrel. Just make sure it drains well and follows the same layering rule. The trick is consistency. The more balanced your inputs, the smoother the breakdown. Once established, the pile becomes almost self-regulating. You'll start seeing rich compost forming faster each cycle as the leftover microbes from previous layers continue working without interruption. So if you've been overcomplicating your composting routine, the lazy pile trick might be your turning point. It's proof that great soil doesn't require constant work, just the right setup and a bit of patience. Start your own lazy pile this week, feed it your kitchen scraps, and in a few months you'll have rich black humus that your plants will love. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to subscribe to Hydra Haven and share it with your fellow gardeners. Together, we're building better soil, one effortless pile at a time.